And good morning and welcome to the Saturday edition of Breakfast Extra, the show I like to refer to as the soul session of news television, where we look back with clarity first and then forward with purpose. Firstly, let me take you guys back to a time when secondary schools in Nigeria wasn't just about passing exams. It was, well, a national project. Now, in the aftermath of Nigeria's brutal civil war, the country stood at a fragile crossroad. The wounds of ethnic conflict ran deep, and the challenge before the federal government was clear: how to prevent future divisions, how to heal old scars, and most importantly, how to build a true sense of Nigerian identity. So, in 1973, the federal government launched a bold initiative, the Federal Unity Schools, or Unity College. It was better known as Unity Schools. A simple but very ambitious concept where children were selected from all states in Nigeria and the FCT, and they were admitted into federal secondary schools, often far away from their home states, to live, learn, and also grow together. Now, this was nation building through a boarding school system. Unity schools were designed to reflect Nigeria itself, ethnically diverse, socially integrated, and ideologically united. Yoruba girls from Ibadan would bunk with Kanuri girls from Maiduguri. Igbo boys from Anambra would share classrooms with Fulani classmates from Sokoto. The aim was clear: to build relationships before prejudices could once again take root. Now, those schools were not cheap imitations, no. They were elite, well-funded, well-equipped, and guided by a federal standard that at the time rivaled private secondary schools education and even those ones now. And what made Unity Schools powerful was the shared experience. You learned mathematics and literature, yes, but you also learned how to speak other languages. You discovered new foods, and you learned tolerance, not from textbooks, but from daily living and sometimes also fighting. I mean, Unity Schools made tribalism uncool, churning out patriots. It was a system with soul. Now, one of those schools found its home in Shagamu, Ogun State, the Federal Government Girls College Shagamu. Its mission was bold: to train girls who'd lead and pass on to the next generation. The school anthem itself said it: pass on the torch, brightly gleaming. Now, I want you to remember that. And then imagine this: a campus of over 2,000 boarders, proper infrastructure, and teachers, and also house mistresses who guided you day in and day out. In those halls came leaders, women who Nigerians will forever be proud of, women who passed on the torch, still brightly gleaming, forming alumni and giving back to FGGC Shagamu, giving back to Nigeria. However, in the back corners of this monochrome narration was a little girl named Olukemi Olufunto Adegoke. Now, let me tell you about Funto. See, Funto was born in Wimbledon in January 1980. She, however, spent much of her childhood in Nigeria, in Surulere, in Lagos, here. Her father, Dr. Femi Adegoke, was a general practitioner and Yoruba rights advocate. Her mother, Professor Feyi Adegoke, was a university lecturer at Unilag. To point out, this isn't a story of some abandoned child navigating a broken system. No, we're talking about a middle-class household, which in Nigeria at the time meant that NEPA took light often. You fetched water from the compound borehole, and yes, sometimes you trekked all 4 kilometers back from school with the house help. It was growing up in the 80s, and we understood that. So around 1991, Funta was admitted into FGGC Shagamu, where she joined a system built to forge nationhood, a place where early mornings, cramped dormitories, and cutting grass with a machete weren't punishment. They were tradition. Tough, yes, but it was designed to toughen you. And for decades, it worked. And by the way, FGGC Shagamu is still thriving today. Old girls built libraries, water towers, empowerment centers. Some sets even installed smart boards, others renovated classrooms. Their mission remained to pass on the torch, brightly gleaming. And they upheld that. But unfortunately, the world did not talk about the efforts of these fine members of the alumni of FGGC Shagamu this past week. It talked about Funto. Olukemi Olufunto Adegoke Badenoch, now a high-ranking leader in the UK Conservative Party, only last week described FGGC Shagamu with a kind of contempt that stung. She called it like prison. She claimed she was forced into child labor, waking before dawn to cut grass with a machete and fetching water by the buckets. She described the Unity school system as one that sent children thousands of miles away from home, where though no point in Nigeria is ever that far apart. She spoke of it as if it was exile, where it was only a federal structure. But for many of us, it was a structure that worked. But painful was the tone, the way she framed Nigeria as something to flee from, as though everything she dislikes is rooted in Nigeria and Nigerians. But hang on a second, let's be honest. Being a black woman in British politics is no small feat. Kemi Badenoch has done well for herself, and we salute that. But when telling your story becomes a way to show the world how you escaped Nigeria, not how you were shaped by Nigeria, that is the problem, and that's where it all begins. See, her critics, well, they call her the black face of white supremacy, a minister allergic to her own motherland. Even Nigeria's vice president, Kashim Shettima, couldn't hold his tongue. He called her out, saying if she was that uncomfortable with her roots, well, maybe she should drop Kemi from her name entirely. He pointed to Rishi Sunak, the UK Prime Minister of Indian descent, who never once spoke ill of India, never spat on the land of his ancestors, no matter how British he had become. See, Kemi, and I'm talking to you now, your name is still Olukemi Olufunto Adegoke Badenoch. It's Nigerian through ancestry, upbringing, and roots, and these will never wash off. Yes, you left Nigeria at 16, but you were shaped by it first, especially during the turbulent 1990s dictatorship, economic collapse, governance relapses or lapses, industrial actions, and civil unrest, conditions you say formed your political outlook even today. Because admitting hardship is one thing, framing it as a national failure worthy of shame, well, that's disgusting. Here's the truth. FGGC Shagamu may not have produced the kind of leader the Tories would easily embrace. It didn't teach pandering. It didn't polish you for polite applause. It didn't bleach your skin, nor could it straighten your hair, unfortunately. But what FGGC Shagamu did build was a woman who could stand in London, speak her mind, and make Westminster shift or even sometimes shake. And for that, Kemi, Nigeria is proud of you. Even if you bite the hands that fed you once, those lessons of discipline, grit, and resilience, they are our Nigerian lessons. Because the people you're performing for will always see your difference first. Your skin is melanin popping. Thus, they will forever remember you as the black leader of the Conservative House. But we, your people, we will always see the blueprint, the Shagamu in you, even where you have tried to erase it. So yes, Kemi, you may rewrite the stories, but your roots are linked into those first pages that were written here in Nigeria, in Surulere. So when the praises fade, when the noises die, when the world moves on from you as the Conservative leader, come home. We, the country you have passed, or rather forgotten to pass on the torch for, we know they throw away Pekin. Because whether you like it or not, we know what we made. We made you.
Hello and welcome. You're watching News Central here. It's time for Breakfast Extra after a stellar monologue once again. Welcome to Breakfast Extra this morning. Coming up on Breakfast Extra for this Saturday morning, we've got a plenty lineup for you. Starting with, we look at Nigeria's flooding crisis, not just as a seasonal disaster, but as a real-time climate emergency that's shaping our cities and threatening lives. Then we turn to Lagos politics and the fallout from the local government elections, why voter turnout was abysmal, and what it says about grassroots democracy. Then later in our Continental Spotlight, we examine the state of journalism in Africa, from ethics to press freedom, and the growing pressure on media voices across Nigeria, Cameroon, Ghana, Kenya, South Africa, and Malawi. Plus, we turn to Nollywood this time for a creative corner, and we have one of the icons from that sector, Segun Arinze. He'll be joining us to reflect on his legacy, the changing creative industry, and what's next after 3 decades in the limelight. And then we turn to Wellness Central. We'll be marking World Breastfeeding Week with a timely look at how Nigeria can better support nursing mothers with real systems, not just slogans this time. But before all that, let's take a look at what's making headlines this morning. Zeno, good morning to you.
Good morning to you, another proud graduate of FGTC Shagamu.
Oh, gosh.
Aren't you, though?
Yes, I am.
You are. There
Loud
you
and proud.
Yeah. I read so much about the school, I began to feel like as if I went there. If only I was female.
Oh, gosh. I must say that that the school, the uniform that was on display, it's quite interesting. I think it was
Did it take you back?
No, I was going to say the history of the uniform.
Oh, do please, go ahead.
It used to be white and green.
Okay.
Yeah, it used to be white and green. And I think another school had white and green. And then by the time we had the principal, who used to be the principal of Queen's College and then Federal Government Girls College, Osun State, when she came and she saw it, she was like, no, we need an upgrade. And so she changed the uniform to the uniform that looks exactly like Queen's College uniform. Only Queen's College is blue, ours is green, and I think Wetumedu is yellow. So it's quite interesting, the history.
What was it like being at FGGC Shagamu? What was it like, I mean, because we heard a story from Kenny Badenoch. What was it like for someone else who went there?
So my background was a lot different from all the girls there. So at first it was very hard to
acclimatize.
To acclimatize. There's a lot that slips through the crack, which is expected because as teenagers, we're very, very mean. You
don't understand the system or why it is so.
Yeah. So at first it was hard for me, right? But I'm also very thankful for the experiences that sort of shaped this woman that I've become, right? Okay. I'm not going to say that it was glory all through. There were hard times, there were very difficult times to try to, because I was different, my background was different. These were very upper middle class individuals and girls who came from different backgrounds, very different from where I came from, and there was a lot of problem there. But other than that, towards the end, it was also, easy. I think as you grow older, as you become, as you grow up the ranks, it becomes easier to navigate, and that was it, right? And I do hope that those culture and that experience that I did experience as a junior secondary student, I hope that the junior secondary students are not experiencing it, right?
And some of them might be traumatic.
It was quite traumatic.
But then again, do you think that those experiences, no matter how traumatic, also add to what you become today? You know how to navigate systems that might, challenge you. Right. You navigate them better because you've been through this while you were a kid.
Right. No, I mean, like I said, it formed the woman that I am today, right? And I'm always it's a proud thing now to know that I went to such a school, right? There are so many women who are doing amazingly well, whether it's a career, or whether it's politics and health, governance, public service, private sector entrepreneurs who came from that school, and you'd never know until they tell you, right?
Judith,
they've done really well.
What did you feel like when you saw the clip from earlier this week with Badenoch talking about child labor and machete cutting and all of that?
So what's interesting is that you can tell that was the personality as a GSS1 student, right? Because you're GSS1, you're GSS2, GSS3, you're
coming from being pampered at home.
So
they're bringing you come and cut grass.
And we must understand.
Who are you people?
You're right, I mean. But and being there as a child and cutting grass at first, it's very jarring for you. So I completely understand that, but I think she's taking it out of context and saying that there were no lawnmowers in those schools is quite, please, Kemi, stop that. There were mowers. Can you stop doing that? There was an entire department that was on manual labor, because who's going to cut the edges, the flower trimmings? Who's going to do all of that? It's not the students. So there was actually an entire department that was huge that had to do with the maintenance. We had a carpentry department that was dealing with, fixing the bunks and the desk and everything else.
What about the contribution from the alumni?
Look, you just saw that, right? And I've never been to a school where the parent-teacher association and alumni
was ever stronger.
Was ever stronger as that. It was so strong. Every time we had outside debates and outside competitions, the teachers and the alumni, I'm an alumni group. If I hear, there's a video I have on my phone, I wish I can pull it up and show you. I went to, this was in 2018, and I went to Social Media Week then, this was way back, and the students were there. And I saw them, I went a beeline there, and every single time we alumni know that our girls are going to be in this facility or this, immediately is a big sister, junior, big sister, younger sister, arrangement.
Dynamic,
we're out there, we're there. Hi, how are you doing? Like, we want to help, you know what I mean? And
I'm
that's
sure
what
they
it
look
is.
up to you now, seeing you on television.
So,
that's the way that it should be.
No, so it's heartbreaking. So I think that mentality is very clear because she never graduated with us, right? But also, there's also the thing of wanting to constantly posture to see that it's really bad, like it's all bad and gloom and is horrible, Baby, it's not. You need to stop
Maybe
doing
she's a conservative leader.
No, you need, darling, you need to stop doing all of that. Yes, we did cut grass, but this was manual labor, and it happens every Thursday. And on Saturdays, there's also cutting grass as well. You have to be able to trim your environments. Now, you have to clean your corridors and your toilets, and and we're young children, of course, which makes perfect sense. But also, you have to learn to, because now I have plants. Do you get what I mean? Like, I have plans.
Well, listen, Judith, I wish we could talk about this all day. Look what we've done once again, another weekend in a row. We've missed out on talking about the dailies. We'll bring you the daily subsequently, but this was too interesting. First-person experience had to be told. Tell you what, let's take a break. When we come back, our first big story. If you've been experiencing flooding in Lagos, well, they're saying you should move. They're saying you should move. We'll be back to talk about that instance. Do stay tuned. Once again, you're welcome. It's Breakfast Extra. Now, let's talk about the conditions in Lagos. Everybody seems to be complaining about the past 5 days. Flooding. It's no longer just a seasonal inconvenience. From Lagos to Lokoja, heavy rains now come with a fear of disaster. Lives lost, homes submerged, businesses destroyed. What we are witnessing isn't just poor drainage or urban mismanagement anymore. It's a disturbing symptom of a changing climate. Scientists have long warned that the effects of climate change would hit Africa hardest, even though the continent contributes the least to global emissions. Nigeria is now facing that reality, with floods growing in frequency and intensity, stretching our emergency response very thin. And even the public health sector as well, security too, urban development. Well, Bernard Akede, News Central lead correspondent, had this package put together during the week. Let's take a look.
This is the aftermath of hours of unrelenting rainfall from Sunday night into the early hours of Monday. The result, streets in Agungi submerged under flood waters, some reaching knee level, others climbing as high as the bonnet of vehicles, daring to move through. Daily life ground to a halt. Residents, frustrated and stranded, say the flooding has once again exposed the deep infrastructural challenges in the area.
I was supposed to have a meeting for 11 this morning. I couldn't make it to the office because I could not leave my house. I had to start making videos for my boss, for him to see. And I'm not even sure he understands, but I hope he understands. It's very terrible.
It would be crazy to see anything to buy. Right now, I can't take this water. I have to buy something else because most of the shop will not even have some product because of this flood. When you ask them, they say they cannot even go to Agungi. They cannot even see bike or even Marwa to go anywhere.
Agungi is one of the many flood-prone communities in the Lekki corridor. Over the years, repeated flooding has forced some residents to abandon their homes. Commercial vehicles now avoid the route, while several small businesses have shut down due to poor access and low customer turnout.
I've been in this Agungi since 2017. This is what we usually see every time, every day. We're hoping for them to do more better, to work on this road, even to dig gutter. You can see Osakpa now is actually nice because they're already digging big gutter.
Residents are now calling on the Lagos State government to move beyond temporary palliatives and provide a lasting solution to the flood crisis.
This is affecting everybody. You would think it's just probably people that probably are not mobile, but even the people that are mobile, it's been affected because you don't want to drive your car in this type of water. It's not reasonable.
I beg, may they try help us do this road for us, I beg. Because with the suffer, people they fall inside water, the people car, water they spoiler. I beg, may they try help us do this road for us, I beg.
I don't think they come to places like this. I'm not sure, because if they do, they will see how bad it is, how it will affect their cars, their convoy and whatever, and they'll do something about it. They need to come into the streets to see how we're being affected. Life is happening here.
Year in, year out, residents of Agungi face this every rainy season. Their cries have gone out to the government, and they are still going out to the government asking for a permanent solution to this flooding such that their lives can return to normal. In Lagos for News Central, Bernard Akidi.
Many thanks to Bernard there for that report. Now, the signs are clear and the stakes are high as Nigeria confronts these climate-induced challenges. The role of institutions, meteorological predictions, and public awareness becomes even more critical. With us today to unpack these complex issues are our lead correspondent and the person who brought us that report from over the week, Bernard Akidi. He joins us live, and also joining us as well to give us a bit of insight regarding the climate conditions. We have Ibrahim Mosiu. He's the Deputy General Manager of Public Weather Services at the Nigerian Meteorological Agency, NIMET. He's going to bring us a bit of expertise into climate patterns and policy readiness. Gentlemen, thank you both for joining us. We appreciate you for coming on. Let me start with Bernard. We've seen that report, and jarring, but also this happens year in, year out. What's a solution at this time?
Thank you for having me. First of all, I wouldn't rule out the fact that there's a place of human activity, and by human activity I mean residents in the area, not just in Agungi now. Agungi was just a case study, if you like, but in other places that are flood-prone across Lagos and everywhere else. First of all, we have to continue preaching the gospel of not littering the streets such that our drains get blocked. That is number one challenge we've been having. And the Lagos State government and other governments too have been preaching that. Now, having said that, as I stated in that report, there's structural, will I say, degradation, so to speak, or infrastructural degradation. There's the part where if something continues to happen year in, year out, it's no longer just an error, it's a pattern, and then we now have to look at what exactly is causing this pattern to continue. In the case of Agungi, I believe, and many other places on the island as well, it could be blocked drains, or that the drains are not flowing well, or that they were not properly dug. It's possible that at the time these drains were dug, climatic conditions were not this bad, like you clearly stated in that opening. And now we know for a certain that some of these things we're seeing, or the kind of rains we're seeing now, are elements of weather and climate beginning to change on us. So it means that whatever infrastructure we put in back in the day to tackle these elements also need to change at some point. We need to look at our canals, we need to look at our gutters, we need to look at our drainage systems, we need to look at the channels where these waters flow from the streets, from the roads to the streets, and then into the lagoons and possibly the canals. Are these channels still sustainable? Can they still contain the volume of water that we now see when it rains? I mean, on that fateful day, it rained from night till the next morning, clearly meaning that huge volumes of water will be flowing through these channels. And so I think these are some of the conversations that we should be having, of course, with the fact that we are now expected to see more rain than we have been seeing before, as stated by NIMET and other meteorological agencies. So I think it would take a collective effort of all and sundry, the government, the residents, the individuals generally, to ensure that, yes, we do not litter our environments such that our drains don't get blocked, but those same drains and channels need to be looked at again, revisited by the authorities that put them in place, first of all, to see if they are still functional, if they can still contain the amount of flooding or water that they were built to hold in the past.
Bernard, thank you for the urban solutions that you have suggested. But then again, let me come to Mr. Wasiu here. This is your area of expertise. Now, we're looking at two different problems here. We're looking at one, an urban problem, which Bernard has highlighted in his response there. But then again, there's also the issue of climate change, where it's not just Lagos. We have floodings in even northern states that are not prone to so much. Well, actually, they are. But we see a pattern here that's evolving. It's no longer the same. It's becoming worse. Floodings around these areas. I'd like you, Mr. Wasiu, to please tell us exactly why this is happening and how NIMET is able to maybe sometimes even predict where is prone to flooding, like the message that we received, alerts that we received over the week regarding certain people in certain areas in Lagos who have to move. Could you walk us through this?
Yeah, thank you for that question. No area is the most encouraging study. So let's just understand that in some part of the world, China, even the US, even developed nations are also experiencing this. You have said it all, it's a result of climate change, climate variability, we begin to see extreme weather events. The dry place is becoming drier, the wet place is becoming wet. So that is just the major point. We are now witnessing shift in long-term average over a long period of time, and this is what is causing, major cost of what we are experiencing now. And we need to also understand that when we say flooding, there are quite a number of other factors that also contribute. When you have intense rainfall over a long rainfall over a short period of time to also lead to what is called flooding. And when you also have rainfall, persistent rainfall over time, like the one you mentioned in Lagos, could also lead to, flooding, particularly when, there's less vegetation and population, and most of the rainwater now turn to runoff. What you are likely to witness is, flooding. And like a place like Lagos, like an urban area, you look at everywhere, you see, no infrastructure or not well planned, unregulated, construction, no, big channel like one of your president mentioned earlier. These things are constructed many years back, and you need to review it. You need to look at it again. The rains you have then and you had then compared to what you have now, are they the same? Definitely no. Things are changing, and we need to change with time. We need to look at our infrastructure, the urban planning. We need to also look at how we plan our society. It also contributes a lot. You have narrow gutter, you don't even allow water to flow, and so many things. And definitely water will find its way. You look at the flow area. We really need to do a lot here because it has been identified as a hotspot, a place where flood is likely to happen. So is just to continue to plan. And don't forget that NIME's core mandate is to, donate, observe, and analyze methodological data for providing timely and accurate weather reporting of weather and climate information for socioeconomic development, for safety of life, livelihood and property, for planning to take an informed decision on the separate direction, for preparedness, to build resilience. If we have worked with this, I think we can reduce the impact. We may not be able to stop it on the natural occurrence. But at least we should be able to reduce the impact of, this flooding on human and on our environment. And you will agree with me that 20 because at the beginning of every year, we do what is called public presentation of seasonal climate prediction. I explain to the public the concept of the rain, that is when it's going to start, the duration when it's going to stop, the length of the rainy season, the total amount of rain you expect in that year, and some other useful information. These people need to work with it. We need to also collaborate with states. States need to come do specific, states, downscale it to states, each state, individual states, based on their peculiarities. That at the end of the day, before the rainy season proper, there will be proper planning ahead of the rainy season. And this many more are what we need to do. And also don't forget that even outside that, NIMET continue to give, weather forecast. We have for every month, at the beginning of this month, you will see the outlook for the month. Our flash flood risk alert that has been issued for public to also plan, know what to do because it's done with the advice. You also see weekly forecast, every rainfall forecast, impact-based forecast that talk about severe thunderstorms, strong wind, and also high temperature. You also see so many other forecasts, and this is being disseminated to the stakeholders, to represent our public on TV, on radio, print media, and all that, to make sure that public are well informed. When you are well informed, you know what to do. So these are being rolled out even on TV. Sensitization also from Monday. Go to all our social media platforms. You see NIMEX prediction. You see NIMEX warning, telling people on what to do. This, hazard is not to happen. It's likely to happen. Yes, prepare.
All right,
so. Out of NIMEX, I think we are doing well.
Now, you just talked about all of the, all of the initiative that NIMET have had to embark on to ensure that the public is aware of what the weather patterns will be, especially with torrential rains and flooding. Yet preparedness is where the shortfalls lie. And so I have to ask you, how should the state properly prepare? Because as the climate is changing, so is the weather pattern and the rainfall patterns are changing. And that means that, you know, the waterways and the gutters and the gullies may not be able to hold as much water as it normally would 10 years ago. So what's a proper preparedness, you know, for each state, especially the red zone states that you highlight in every of your reports and alerts?
Yeah, thank you for that question. Yeah, you know, it differs from state to state. Look at Lagos, for instance, now is an urban city that is well populated. And that is why there's need for review of urban, you know, infrastructure. They need to do assessment of this infrastructure, like your correspondent said earlier, where you have same volume of water in like 10, 20 years. You know, definitely higher than the volume is bigger than that now. So that means all those narrow, you know, gutter drains that you have before now. So those understaffed. So there's need to also, you know, do proper planning. Proper planning again in the sense that all these unregulated structures you have, you know, along the waterways, along the drains, along the gutters, blocking the free flow of water need to be, you know, destroyed, you know, so that we can have free flow of water. And again, we need to also identify all the hotspots. We already know some of them. If we're able to identify all these hotspots, then you know that we need to also give way for water. If we give way water, what definitely is to find its way into the streams and the rivers. That is one. Then on the part of state government, or let me start from the federal government, because federal government, all hands need to be on deck. Federal, state, even individual and community. Federal government on its part, I think I want to give kudos to federal government. Because earlier before now, certain billions, you know, were released for NEMA and other organizations. And not long ago, I'm also aware that 10 billion was released again in NEMA, 3 billion each for the state. We've never had it before that the state, that the SEMA now, we have funds to work and to carry out the activity. It has to be done, and some other agencies, national planning and all that. What I'm emphasizing here is every hand needs to be on deck. Like for state government now SEMA and state government also need to work together. It differs state by state. In Lagos State, for instance, now, you see everywhere paved, no green area, you know, definitely, you know, we have more runoff. So if you have more runoff, we need to create drainage, you know, waterways that will be bigger than what we have now. Structures that are blocking, you can sink. So that you can sink wind. So that are blocking water, we need to be, you know, explained. Take down and allow people of water. We also see people, you know, indiscriminate dumping of refuse, like just for now, indiscriminate dumping of refuse on the water, which is a good flow of water. And this is part of what Lagos will address physically. You know, look at this critically and address it. Okay. Urban planning needs to come on board. They need to do more. They need to sensitize people. You know, look at what is going on. It's not being good for you. So they need to sensitize them.
All right, Mr. Wasi.
All right.
Now, Mr. Wasi, pardon me, but I need to get Bernard to tell us a little something since he's been following the flooding instances in Nigeria. Now, Bernard, I'm wondering exactly how we can help the situation where we see that urban planning might not be the, well, first go-to solution here. We're looking at shifting weather patterns like Judith has just noted. Look at the northern states. We had instances of, well, even graveyards or cemeteries being washed away. It might also lead to sicknesses and all. In Lagos here, there was the alert that was raised asking people who are living in low-lying areas to move out. And that's where I'm going. How can we help these people who are already in these places that are disadvantaged? They would not only be challenged with the fact that they're losing their homes, they also stand the challenge of where to go to. In terms of policy, in terms of helping out these IDPs, because that's what they're going to become, what solutions have you seen or come across in your efforts regarding the instance that the government is making maybe preparations for these exoduses?
Sadly, I would say from here, I haven't seen any solutions be put in place just yet. The warnings are there. The advice is there. A bit funny advice, if you ask me, telling people to relocate, to move from their areas. Lagos is a place where already we have, besides the weather, the crisis of flooding, we have different kind of issues and challenges on our hands. One of them, like you know too well, is the issue of housing and accommodation. So telling people to relocate because their areas are flood prone, is like just giving them a hammer and a nail and saying, become a carpenter. Nothing else, no other information. Where are they expected to go to? Now, to further answer your question, I think at some point, once we have started seeing, or from way back, as a matter of fact, not just now, seeing that flooding has been or has become a recurring decimal in terms of rainy season year in, year out, there should have been by now, in my opinion, some kind of resettlement center temporarily for persons who are staying in flood-prone areas. Of course, we've seen the abuse of such resettlement centers across the country where they're not properly managed. Resources that are supposed to go to these resettlement centers are being diverted. So it means that if the government is looking into creating these centers temporarily again, as I mentioned earlier, so that we know it's only going to be there during the rainy season, or when there are certain kinds of disasters, God forbid, and that these places are properly managed, people can go there while we're having this kind of crisis or disasters in terms of flooding and any other kind of disaster, until these issues are resolved, or until the rainy season has heavily passed, or until the flood waters have receded, or the authorities have cleared the drains and the area has become habitable again. But for now, I'll be honest with you, I haven't seen any, neither have I heard of any. Just like you stated, and we also in that report, the authorities only said that people should relocate. It's quite funny and questionable. Relocate from where to where? It is a challenge, as a matter of fact. And then, again, to answer your question, I haven't seen. I stand to be corrected. I would look out for, if at all there are any. But for now, I haven't seen any plans for people who are stuck in flood areas, flood-prone areas, people who are physically affected by these floods that we've seen.
Let's ask Mr. Wasiu here. Mr. Wasiu, how can NIMET move from just being simply advisory to actually having a part in the action to help people who are so challenged?
On the part of the NIMET, all these agencies, NIMET, NEMA, NICE, Ministry of Environment, stakeholders, we all have a mandate. And the core mandate of NIMET is to provide weather and advice. NEMA has its own role to make sure that people who are the victims of floods, have been taken care of. We are doing our part because there's no how NEMA wants to work. They don't want to just. But as a matter of fact, it's when we issue out our prediction that NEMA work based on. Like the question you asked the other time, you see, we just keep problems on hold. When you ask, people to move to a safe place and nothing is being done in that particular area, you only keep the problem on hold. Because don't forget that from next year, the rain will still occur. So until we do a proper planning, and this is why NAMEC is always advocating for preparedness, let us plan ahead. If this is the problem, you already know it. What are the solutions? The solution lies in the advice, and this is what we always give out. So until we do all this, until we, take care of all these problems by way of finding solutions, lasting solutions, not just a temporary one. If you create an IDP camp, after the rain, they go back here. You have not solved the problem. When rain falls, to see the problem, and they come back again to their home. So we just need to be proactive enough. We need to act and act wisely. And NIMET will continue to provide timely and accurate weather reporting. That's what we are doing, and we'll continue to do that. And I want to also say that, prevention is better than hazard recovery. What we are doing now is just like hazard recovery, providing IPT scans, relief material, and all them. We need to prevent, find a way to minimize the impact of this on lives of people. And that is the way out. From my own hand, I think.
Gentlemen, I must say thank you. I wish that there was enough time for us to talk about the urbanization of our spaces and how the sales of wetlands are also assisting when it comes to flooding. But there's not enough time. I must say thank you, sir. First of all, to Bernard Akede. Bernard, a happy belated birthday to you. Happy 48th birthday to you.
He's not 48. It's an in-house joke.
It's an in-house joke, by the way, but it's too late. Happy birthday to you. All our love. And also to you, sir. We must say thank you, Mr. Ibrahim Mosiu. He's the Deputy General Manager of Public Weather Services at the Nigerian Meteorological Agency, NIMET. Once again, gentlemen, good morning and thank you. You're watching Breakfast Extra here on News Central Television. Let's go on a short break. When we return, we switch to The News Central Town Hall series that happened earlier this week, and this time it was Inside Lagos Politics. After the break, stay with us. And you're welcome back. Let's continue on Breakfast Extra, and this time to our big story for today. On Thursday, News Central hosted the Inside Lagos Politics series, where stakeholders in the Lagos political scene came to address issues from the just concluded Lagos council elections. The turnout in Lagos local government elections hit an all-time low, with some estimates showing that fewer than 6% of registered voters participated. That figure has raised serious questions about democratic legitimacy and the sustainability of grassroots governance. Meanwhile, opposition parties, including the Labour Party, YPP, AAC, and others, are calling for the election results to be nullified, alleging widespread irregularities ranging from missing ballot materials to voter intimidation and unit relocations. Let's get more details from this News Central report put together by News Central's correspondent Sarah Ayuko. We'll bring you that report in our subsequent bulletin. Mazino.
Yes, so to recap, it's appalling voter turnout, serious credibility issues, and threats to grassroots democracy. That's the story from Lagos local polls. Joining us to unpack what this means for governance, democracy, and also ahead of, other elections, we have our guests here. Joining us via Zoom, Onikeku, or rather here in the studio, Mr. Onikeku Quadri, former SA to Executive Chairman of Coca Aguda LCDA. And also joining us via Zoom is Ayoyinka Oni, ACC Chairman, Lagos State Chapter. Gentlemen, you're welcome. Thank you very much for joining us. So I had the privilege, Judith, of speaking with both gentlemen here through the week. So I have kind of like an idea of where their dimensions are going to go. But before we go into that conversation, let's take a look at that package that you announced from before.
This is the second edition of Inside Lagos Politics, with a focus on the fallout of the Lagos local government election. This interaction is to give the people, the candidates and other stakeholders an opportunity to reflect on what went wrong on the 12th of July in Lagos.
I said, who voted here? He said the person has gone. I said, let me see the person. So I standed on, I want to see the person who voted. He said, is that your name? I said, can I show you my card? I show him my card. And he saw Lawal. He said, but you are not Mudashir. I said, my father is Mudashir. How did my father come here to vote? I want to know. Thank God you know that my father is late. How did my father vote here?
How was it resolved? Did they say they were attentive? What did they say?
The LASEC officials,
yeah,
they don't even know what to say because they now know that there's a problem.
I want to employ every candidate and every local government to form a coalition to push independently for this issue. Because all of us here now we are in dark.
We know that this election cannot be free and fair. And it has become a norm in Lagos State that any election, because they are in power, is never free and fair.
Tensions are still high weeks after the election, with opposition parties and some civil society groups pointing fingers at the Lagos State Independent Electoral Commission and security personnel over alleged collusion and irregularities.
You said we had 13,300 polling units. If we do a math by 3, we are looking at 33,900 for the 3-3 without your 6,000. So if you had your 6,000 seats, we are looking at like a 39,900.
But you are assuming that every single police officer will be on election duty. No. If we are bringing in 6,000 officers, that's because we can't use every single police officer for election.
For News Central, the goal is clear.
We have LASEC that takes people's money, then LASEC collects it, runs an election that some people have described as shambolic, that is a charade. Whether they are right or wrong, LASEC has a duty to show up and present their side of the story.
News Central's Town Hall series is a platform where voices are heard, data and evidence are collated to shape policies and hold government officials and relevant authorities accountable. In Lagos, for News Central, Sarah Ayuko.
So people in that my polling booth, they know me to become problem person.
And thanks to Sarah Yuku there for that report. Now, joining us earlier, as we mentioned, is Onikeku Quadri, a former SA to Executive Chairman of Coca Aguda, Local C, that's LCDA. And also joining us via Zoom is Ayoyinka Oni, AAC Chairman, Lagos State. Now, gentlemen, we've seen that report, and we've also watched what played out on election day as well as at the New Central Town Hall. But I have to ask you, gentlemen, about the fallout from the elections, but most importantly, the calls for cancellation of that election. They have now sworn in the chairman and the local council chairman who won the elections. Do you think that there will be any sort of redress to the grievances that was raised by all stakeholders involved? Let me start with you, Ayoyinka, on Zoom there.
Thank you so much for having me once again. To the question if there will be a form of redress, there will be a form of redress if political parties and people of Lagos do what is expected of them, which is to stand on their feet on the fact that this election should be cancelled. We cannot run an election like we are electing for a mafia gang or the biggest crook and expect that those people will go and perform to the expectation of the people. It's not possible. Because I can tell you, when we were saying the statistics of 6% was the result of people that came out, I can tell you that it was even lower than that. The bulk of the percentage of the votes that was used to declare those people as local government chairman and councillors were rigged votes. More than half of the percentage of that votes were rigged. In some local government like Nigerian, in about 4 to be precise, in the councillors' local government, they were already thumb printing in the night. When my candidates went there, to challenge it, they quickly stopped and they refunded him out of the place. And in the next morning, they started an election. You can imagine, So for the cancellation to happen, we political parties have work to do, and we must stand on our ground, legally, constitutionally, and politically, to declare that this election should be cancelled. That is the way it will be done. Will I say go ahead and do that? Of course not. Will Lagos State government go ahead and do that? Of course not. But the people have to put their way into play at this.
I'm hoping we didn't lose Ayoyinka there. Mr. Quadri, you might want to respond to Judith's question there.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah, I want to say it again, that there is room for improvement by LASEC. I'm not here for LASEC. I'm here as a member of APC. And also they let us know that our party, APC, is a law-abiding party. And we can say it for free, that if you have any problem against the election, there are rules that have been set on ground. So take that opportunity, go ahead to the law court and challenge anything you feel you are not comfortable with. But like I said earlier on, that we cannot, because of 1, 2, 3 lapses, cancel the total election. That is my position.
Mr. Quadri, well, so maybe I should start with you on a plain tabula rasa sheet here. Are you happy with the outcome of the elections?
Outcome of the election, I'm happy because I'm a party person, and because my party won. Okay. Everybody will be happy for success.
Okay, fine. So, do you admit that there might have been certain lapses by LASEC?
Yes, I said on during the town hall meeting, and I'm saying it again. Yes. So there are lapses, but because of these few lapses, does not mean that we have to cancel the whole exercise.
Judith, I see you raring to go there. So, if you say these few lapses, if you admit that there are lapses, and majority of the stakeholders are pointing out to these lapses, some of them with evidence, don't you think that the calls for cancellation are valid?
Until proven by the law court, I think we will still maintain our position that the election is valid, and we are standing by it.
So is the APC happy with the dissenting voices that are raising from the occasion of this LGA elections? Are they comfortable with it? Because the majority of the councillors that have been sworn in are all APC councillors. Yeah. There's only just a few who are not. So
Yes.
doesn't it seem
My
that
party,
there's a very obvious
the
imbalance?
The APC is very comfortable. And you know why I say that? Because we know we are on ground. Once you are sure that you're on ground, you should be happy of your victory.
Right. I have to ask you. You said that the APC is a law-abiding party, and from where you stand, they're happy with the outcome of the elections. But the turnout of that election was 6%. It means that the locals that voted for the representation at grassroots level, their representation was just 6%. Is the APC happy that the turnout of that election, of the entirety of Lagos, was just 6%? Does that affirm the APC as a proper representation of Lagos State? Shouldn't the APC rise up and stand up and say, and do the right thing if they're law-abiding, to say, maybe we should look at the poll relocation and the name missings in the ledgers to make sure that at least
there's a fair
there's
representation,
a fair representation who exactly is voting for the APC?
Let me answer it this way. As far as you are concerned, we have done everything humanly possible to do to mobilize our candidates for the election. And I can also tell you for free that yes, a lot of issues must have come up. Yes, some people may not be in town during this period of the election, and also some people are maybe sick. Like someone alleged that someone voted on that day and the person is late. For me, I know these are part of the reason why the turnout was a bit low, and the party is not really happy about it. But the party going forward, we do everything possible to raise that bar so that in the coming election, we can improve on the output.
Mr. Ayoinka, we hear that you're back with us. Maybe you heard some of the questions that were fired at Mr. Quadri here, but I'm wondering on your side of things. You were also at the town hall. I think you also spoke there. If you were to be asked to put into perhaps maybe a percentage type register, how many voices, opposing voices to the result of the elections were at that town hall, how would you measure it?
If we critically look at it, you will realize that 99% of the people, apart from even party, are in no way happy with the election result, including APC members. The funny thing is that they cannot speak like we can do, because Yoruba will say, even within their party primaries, many of them were disenfranchised. Sorry, please, can you hear me?
You have to translate for us, please.
Oh, okay. It means if you are eating from the food on the table, you cannot speak when food is in your mouth.
Okay.
That's what it means. You know, because we cannot be talking about improvement when they planned to actually fail. It's not a talk about improvement. Improvement to what? Improvement to
so Mr. Ayoinka,
you went in.
Mr. Ayoinka,
Yes.
let's talk about the details of the disagreements now. What are these details? What happened especially on election day that leads these opposing, these parties to say, no, we're not with this election? Can you tell us some of them?
Good. Thank you so much. Let me backtrack a little. First, you gave polling tags to party leaders in the evening on Friday for election on Saturday. Many of them couldn't deliver that tag to their people until the next morning. You gave APC very early. Shows you clearly that the APC and LISEC hand in hand. Now, on election day, you did not arrive in many of the places, because I went round. I was listening to the PRO say, oh, you couldn't move around. I was able to move around. I went to all locations. An election for 8, you were arriving at 10 at 1 p.m. In some places, they did not even show up. LISEC officers themselves were even looking for their polling units. That's how much it was scattered.
So, Mr. Ayoinka, so it would seem that the lapses that you are mentioning are not lapses from the APC. These are LISEC lapses, it would seem. Do you agree?
No, I'm coming to that of the APC. I'm coming to that of the APC. And I will tell you the lapses of the APC. And that's why I'm disappointed when Mr. Quadri said it's a success. You don't achieve success with cane and cutlass on an election. Like I said, we're not going to an election to choose a mafia gang or a warlord. We're going to an election to choose councillors, chairmen, leaders of communities that will make policies and execute projects to better the life of the local government. So when you win such election by double voting, cutlass, gun, and cane, and harassment, and you call that success, then we're a failure as a country. Because that was the tools that the APC used to rig themselves, including vote buying and bribery. And they were shamelessly doing it at the polling units. They were not even hiding it. They bribed the license officers, they were bribing police officers to make sure that whatever irregularity that is done at the polling unit, it is not stopped by the license officers. You said people should go to court. Their own law, license own law of their officers, they did not obey it. The law that polling unit agents were supposed to obey, they did not obey it right at the polling unit with evidences. So that is not a success. So LISEC, poor election planning, poor election execution, accepting all the irregularities, the APC bring irregularities, bringing thugs, multiple voting, ballot snatching, especially in Yaba. And we want to call that a success. We cannot call that a success. Can be in the parameters of success.
Mr. Quadri have said that the APC is a law-abiding party, but you have accused the party of thuggery, of rigging, of intimidation, as well as bribery. And you also implicated Lasiak and its officials as well into your allegations here. Now, I must put it out here that we cannot confirm your statements, and those are based on your observation and not News Central. But I do have to ask you, if you have this level of allegations, I'm sure there must be evidence to back up these allegations. And so what then is the next step for your party and the other oppositions who are against and are calling for an entire cancellation of this local government elections? Are you at the courts now? Is there a coalition among all of the opposition parties to come together to call for cancellation? What's the next step for opposition?
Thank you. So there was a press conference by a few political parties. AAC was represented, even though I couldn't make it physically, to declare this election null and void. And many political parties are in court. Likewise, we also. But apart from this, there are also going to be political steps. The evidences that we have, it will be a misfailure or a failure on our part to present it to LISEC. LISEC is part of the problem, a very systematic problem, And it will also be a failure for us, because I listened to the PRO and he's saying we can present it to the police and all that. The police were part of this. They were part. So we cannot present it to all the Lagos State government that were also involved. None of these people can judge their own case, So it is for us to present it to the court and also take other political moves to expose all this. They are evidences.
Okay.
Even though the thuggery was so much that they even had to be deleting some of those evidences, but we still were able to get them. Evidences of thuggery, evidences of multiple voting. No, it was even beyond multiple. It was alarming.
All right, then, Ayo Inka.
Evidences of harassment of people from voting for their candidate.
All right, then, Ayo Inka.
That can be an election.
Ayo Inka, let's talk to Mr. Quadri here. Mr. Quadri, the APC is aware of these grievances by the other parties. Now they're saying that they're going to come together and perhaps go to court. How ready is the APC to face these parties in court and also ensure that there is a fairness that is applied to the entire process, where if there are certain lapses that the APC has noticed, maybe not on the side of the APC but LASIEC, that they would also maybe help the situation in any way?
As a
law-abiding party, as you have just told that the APC is. So how prepared are you, and what measures are you and your party willing to take?
Anyway, to start asking your question, I want to put it on record that even AAC in my own local government, they don't even participate in the election. In my own local government, just two parties, APC and PDP. And that is why I'm saying that.
That's some of the lapses that they're talking about, that some of these parties
Their names were omitted from the ballot.
My brother, you cannot put something on nothing. When you don't have a candidate, I cannot help you to give you a candidate. Like, I'm sure LASEC will never help you to provide a candidate.
You're still missing it. They said that they had primaries, they picked their candidate, they submitted the names to LASEC. LASEC omitted their names from the ballot paper. This is not just ACC. We also had incidents during the election when we were covering the local government elections several weeks ago. We also had candidates from Ajoromi Felodu local government area who came on the station here to say that their names were omitted, the candidates' name were omitted from the ballot paper.
Anyway, let me not talk much because I'm not from LASEC. They should face LASEC and argue that. But moving forward, I said we are a law-abiding party, and I'm standing by it. And I know that if you have any challenge about the election, you have any issue, and you have evidence as they claim, let them challenge, let them approach the tribunal and follow the normal law that has been put in place. So my party will also be ready to come and defend itself when that time comes.
Well,
indeed. Well, gentlemen, I must say thank you. We're pretty much out of time here. We will wait to see how this will turn out for the opposition parties, as well as whether LASEC or not will step up to the plate to address these grievances raised by by the opposition parties. But gentlemen, thank you so much for coming on. We appreciate you for doing this with us this morning.
Thank you very much. Let's stay tuned because we've got more conversation coming up inside of Breakfast Extra.
And you're welcome back. Now, across the African continent, journalism is caught between principle and pressure. From government crackdowns on the sector to issues of, press freedom as well as freedom of speech, and most importantly, to regulatory overreach. Journalists continue to face threats that go beyond censorship, ranging from arbitrary arrest to physical intimidation and media shutdowns. In Ghana, the Committee to Protect Journalists, and that's the CRJ, recently urged President Mahama to end the culture of impunity and restore public confidence in press freedom. In Cameroon, the praise surrounding the release of a student journalist belies the fragility of media protections in the country, especially for younger, under-established voices. Back home here in Nigeria, the sudden closure of Badigi Radio in Niger State has sparked national debate. While state authorities cite licensing issues, observers see it as a pattern of a larger pattern of intolerance toward independent journalism. That the Federal Minister of Information, Mohammed Idris Malagi, has to appeal for calm. And he also spoke volumes about the tension between media and political power. It's a reminder that even in a democracy, the airwaves can be stifled without warning.
Press freedom is not a luxury, it's a necessity. In a continent where misinformation, political instability, and weak institutions often blur the lines between fact and fear, an independent press stands as the last firewall between the public and propaganda. So to start this critical conversation, we are going to be joined by a host of guests who will be joining us. We are expecting to be joined by Honorable Binta Maman. Let's put that out first. Commissioner for Information and Strategy in Niger State. This is following the instance from Niger State here in Nigeria regarding Bagadi FM. Here on Zoom, joining us now, Mr. Akin Agbejule, FNIPR broadcaster and member of the National Governing Council of the Nigerian Institute of Public Relations. Thank you very much for joining us this morning, sir. And also on video, we have Harriet Atiang, station manager, Dada Radio Kenya. Thank you very much for joining us, Harriet. So we're going to be beginning with you, Mr. Aki. Mr. Aki, first off, you are in Niger State, where we had the very instance that we spoke about in our intro here. Could you first of all give us an overview of what exactly it is like working in Niger State, being a press personnel?
Well, I'd like to say that it's a very convenient and convivial environment working as a professional here and elsewhere. And I think that government, media have had very good relationship over time, over the years. I'll let you know that we are now having upcoming and new media coming into the fray. And of course, new establishments, for instance, the Badegi is new. And there's certain ropes to be learned in the practice and the environment, which of course is still being learned. So the fact that they are having some contentions at this point is a fact of a learning curve which they have to go through in terms of the decorum, in terms of the sentiments, in terms of the content and context of broadcast. I think that's what really the contention is. It's not as if the environment, it's been very good. Government has been reaching out through media to the people. And of course, the media have been reaching out through the people to the government. But the contention is the newness and the fact that when you are in an environment, you have to acculturate the environment to be able to do the best that you're going to do for the best of the good of the people and the media. So that, I think, is where we are, and it's still a learning curve here.
As we've just been informed that our commissioner, we were expecting her earlier, she just joined us right here, and that's Binta Maman. She's the Commissioner, Ministry of Information and Strategy, Niger State. Honorable Commissioner, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you for coming on. Whilst we're trying to fix your visuals, let me quickly speak to Harriet Atiang here. Now, Harriet, you are the station manager for Dada Radio Kenya. And that means that, you can bring a wider, perspective on this, giving, from East Africa and all that, the country also faces when it comes to, press freedom and, speaking truth to power. Recently, given the protests happening in the capital there and what we've seen from the fallout of the protests, what is it like, staying true to, reporting and being honest in terms of your reportage and sort of striking balance with public sentiments and, government interference?
Thank you so much, and I'm glad to be here. Just as you've stated, we have seen in the past or in the recent days a lot happening in this country of ours, and journalism continues to be more challenging, especially with the current world, the way things are done in the current world. It has continued to be a challenge in terms of, being free to express yourself as a journalist and, having to always watch your back, because you don't know when, when you will be attacked. We've recently seen journalists being attacked not only by police, but also in some regions of this country where, we say it's a very democratic country, but again, we have regions where some, the communities are supporting a particular, side of the political, divide. And as a journalist, you find that maybe going to that areas, you find that journalists are somehow profiled during their work, and it becomes such a huge challenge for us. From this side, you have the police and the government, and the other side, you also have the community, sometimes tending to profile journalists as in terms of maybe some are taken to be maybe supporting a a certain a political side. Those are things that are happening, and it's becoming more challenging to be a journalist actually in the current world.
Becoming more challenging. And we actually note that we see the visuals even here in Nigeria, especially with the riots, or rather I wouldn't call that riot, protests, my apologies, with the protests that happens that mostly involve the younger generation, the Gen Zs who are rising up in dissent with the government. So I'm wondering exactly how news coverage in Kenya carries on. How do you, survive? How do you navigate perhaps maybe hostilities? We also saw the actions of the police, of which the press are very vocal against. How do you navigate these different little challenges that you have in Kenya as a press person without being a victim yourself?
One is to ensure that you are as neutral as possible, because as the ethics demand, we are not supposed to take sides. So, and another thing is make sure you are as factual as possible. You state the facts and ensure that you're not biased in your reporting. And another thing, so far we have seen that it's a bit tricky reporting, violence or maybe riots. And what has helped us, sometimes you just have to maybe, we have so far been helped so much by social media, where sometimes you just have to, stick around and also follow other channels where you can find more information. And again, on the ground, you ensure that at least you have other sources. For example, the administration, maybe the other departments that are willing to maybe share information. But honestly speaking, it is not easy to cover such, stories like riots in this country.
Right, in the country, indeed. Harriet, we have to let you go for now, but I must say thank you so much for taking out the time to join us. But before we go very quickly, I want to ask about the entry of Gen Zs into press as well, and the establishment, or rather the move, the initiative to want to establish more Gen Z voices in press and media. Do you see that happening with, this going on the grounds in Nairobi and as well as across Kenya? Do you see more younger voices coming on into press to sort of establish themselves and give voice to the voiceless?
Yes, that is so much happening. And to a large extent, I must confess that that has helped a lot, because we are having a new generation of, fearless people. This generation is becoming more fearless and more bold and more courageous in terms of expressing themselves, in terms of sharing the information they have, and in terms of, advocating for their rights. So it's actually, for me, a good thing to have this Gen Z generation getting into the media, because they are more bold and more courageous, as compared to maybe the other generations. I don't know whether I'm in the other generation, but if you look at the kind of journalism that was there before, you realize that there is a shift in terms of, the boldness and the courage, in terms of, in terms of the way the people express themselves. So it is a good thing that a new generation is coming up, a new, more bolder and more courageous generation is actually coming up, and we highly welcome that. This will also ensure that democracy, is established, and also is also ensured in the country, that there is democracy. So having such a group of young people coming on board, taking on in the media, taking on the political sphere, and taking on, in the different sectors, it is a good thing. And for me, it's a welcome move, and I believe that it will help in terms of, ensuring, also promoting and fighting for press freedom, not only in East Africa, but also in the other parts of the world. And we welcome this. And me as an individual, I highly welcome this move, and I welcome this new generation to take on in the career of journalism, and, in terms of also sharing information.
Oh, we welcome them.
Thank you very much for speaking with us. Now let's welcome our Honorable Commissioner for Information, Niger State, Honorable Binta Maman. She is on with us. Honorable, you're welcome. We waited a while for you, and we're happy that you can join us. We're going to go straight into it and ask about the instances here in Nigeria. We're taking a look across Africa, however, but let's talk about Nigeria and the instance in Niger State. Now, your agency put out, your commission put out a press release only just last week regarding the instance that emanated from the Bagadi FM closure. However, we are aware that it wasn't closed. It was, dialogued about, and you came out with that statement reaffirming your commission's duty to freedom of the press. Could you please talk us through that statement which you put out?
First, let me thank you for this question, and good morning, viewers. Let me be very clear here that the Niger State government, under the leadership of His Excellency, the former Governor Muhammad Umar Bago, has no agenda at all to stifle dissent or restrict press freedom in Niger State. Our administration recognizes the media as a critical partner in governance, nation building, and accountability. The recent concern about Badegi FM stemmed from allegations of unprofessional conduct and incitement, which could have serious implications for public peace. So as soon as that concern was raised by His Excellency, in the heat of that discussion, he expressed the view that such conduct must be addressed decisively. And however, the ministry sat with relevant stakeholders to look into the matter and refer this matter to NBC, which we did. We wrote a letter to NBC to intimate them about our complaint concerning Badegi.
All right, Honorable.
Honorable, you just pointed out that Badegi made some incitatory comments. I would like to ask what those comments were, and how severe that they were, so much that it prompted the state government to alert the NBC.
Well, like I earlier mentioned, we have submitted our report, our complaint to NBC, which we know is a regulatory body that has the power to either revoke or sanction any broadcasting station. And I would not like to mention those issues because our complaints are already in the letter that we have submitted. And I will want to use this platform to urge the NBC to ask Badegi Radio to submit their docket, and I'm sure from there they will be able to pick those complaints that we have laid against Badegi Radio.
So, Madam, to make it clear, the government did not close Badegi FM, did they?
No, not at all. Badegi Radio, I'm sure Nigerians are aware that the general manager of Badegi Radio was on air sometimes in last week, where she made mention that since the pronouncement of His Excellency to shut down Badegi Radio, they have not gone off air even for a second. And that was to tell you that we respect the constitutional process and will allow NBC do its, to take the mandate, or allow NBC do diligence to our complaint.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Mr. Agbejile, I'm going to come to you now. You're in Niger State. So we want to look at it from both sides. Badegi FM, what went wrong? What kind of what the details are regarding their conduct? And then the initial response from the state governor, how did that pan out with you? Do you think that that was sort of like an interference, a stifling of press freedom of sorts, that outright call out for the station to be closed? What do you think, Mr. Agbejile?
Well, the move from the government would not necessarily amount to stifling, because Badegi had been broadcasting, and even these materials that you're talking about had already been in the media. It's already in the air. So, and when you look at the stifling, no, I don't think that's the way to go. The way that the Honorable Commissioner talked about dockets and all the rest, the major part of what goes on air is not going to be featuring in the dockets, because a lot of them are impromptu, they're from the outside, and there is no way that they are able to guide that one. And even from the get-go, it's a free way for people to broadcast, and there is no caution to tell people this is what you should say, this is how to say, this is what you shouldn't say. So everybody, it's a free reign of thought, and people just talk, and because there is an implicit disposition of the station to broadcast whatever comes. And in that manner, of course, there will be a lot of things that are being said that shouldn't be said, or that should have been said in different ways. So the communication part of it is the major problem that the station has. And of course, government will have issues when you're trying to tell them information and messages, but then the way that you take it is not the way that it should really be said, in such a way that it will make any impact on what the government does or the development of the state of communication itself. So decorum is out of it in a lot of sense. And that way, of course, you are bound to infringe on sentiments and emotions and the rest. The Badegi had been on air for as long as I know, But I think that the caution of doing this is what they need now to do. And like I said, it's a learning curve, even though it's a very bitter, sweet one at this instant. That's my comment.
All right, Honorable, I must say thank you to the both of you for taking out the time to join us. I wish we can continue with this discussion, but unfortunately we are out of time. The Honorable Commissioner for Information for Niger State, Honorable Binta Maman, as well as Mr. Akin Agbejule, who is a broadcaster and member of the National Governing Council of the Nigerian Institute of Public Relations. Gentlemen and lady, thank you for coming on.
So we are going to continue.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much. We're going to continue with press freedom in Africa. Let's take a short break. We've got a host of other commentators who will be joining us after this. Do stay tuned.
Hey, welcome back. You're watching Breakfast Extra here on News Central Television. We are well into our second hour, and we've been talking about press freedom, but this time across Africa. Now, there's been instances scattered across the globe or scattered across the continent where press has been suppressed, and of course, the reach of reporters as well as journalists has been stifled. And so to continue this discussion, we're joined by a journalist joining us live from Cameroon, this time Yaoundé.
Yes, indeed. We're joined by Francis Ajimane, President, Cameroon Association of English-Speaking Journalists. He joins us now. Francis, you're welcome. Thank you very much for joining us. Francis, so recently, you guys welcomed the release of a student journalist who had been detained, an incident that kind of like highlights the real risks faced by young and emerging reporters in Cameroon. What does this case reveal about the current climate of media freedom in Cameroon?
It's not, good morning and thanks for having me on your show. It's not, for us in Cameroon, it's not strange. This is something we journalists, especially in the current climate, political climate marked by the upcoming presidential elections in Cameroon. It's not strange. We know that we are going to face more and more challenges to reporting because we've been battling with press freedom, I think, for almost 10 years now, since we know we have a conflict in the English-speaking parts of Cameroon. And since that conflict broke out in 2016, we have had a lot of challenges when it comes to press freedom. So we just know that with the political climate coming up, the situation will just be exacerbated. And we saw it last Monday with the arrest of a student journalist who was just going to cover proceedings at the Constitutional Court. There was a lot of tension in the air because the main opposition figure, who had his name, he had not been retained by the Electoral Council of the Election Management Body, and so it was up to the Constitutional Court to uphold that decision, uphold or reinstate the political figure. And so we knew already as journalists that we knew that there was tension in the air, and we knew that we had to tread with caution. Unfortunately, that day, as we know what press freedom means to this regime and to us, and so we had the student journalists arrested. But thanks to the mobilization from journalists and across the country, we were able to get the student journalists free. But it's just a signal of what is to come in terms of press freedom or press crackdown during this period.
As you're talking about what's to come, we know that the elections are months away, the general elections. And broadly speaking, journalists in Cameroon, whether English-speaking or French-speaking, often face additional layers of scrutiny and marginalization. What does it say about the social-political climate and its influence on press freedom itself?
That climate has had a very huge impact on press freedom in Cameroon. We know that in Cameroon, we always say that you are free to say what you say, but you don't know the consequences that come after. So the social-political climate, as rightly said, will heavily or hugely impact, or has even been impacting the press freedom in Cameroon for a very long time now, because you cannot say what you want to say freely, or you are not sure that what you are going to say, you'll be safe after you say it. For example, I think about 7 years ago, we had post-elections litigation in Cameroon streamed live on television, and we all applauded that. That was press freedom, that we wanted to see proceeding at the Constitutional Court being aired or streamed on live television and national television. But we did not take into account that those post-elections litigations at the Constitutional Court 7 years ago were being streamed because they had no bearing, they had no consequence, because we already knew that the Constitutional Court, whose members are all appointed by the president in place, all loyalty to him, and so it was very difficult to see how they will cancel the election. But this time around, 7 years later, there is a pre-election litigation to force the Constitutional Court to reinstate the opposition leader. But we were surprised that the litigations or the hearings were not streamed live. The Constitutional Court didn't give permission to the media to stream it live, because so the media started asking, what is the Constitutional Court hiding from the public to know? And even journalists or citizen journalists or bloggers who had the courage to get into the proceedings and then try to get images or stream it live, their equipments were seized, and most of them were set out. Yes, the court said that you cannot stream proceedings live when you have not been given permission. So we begin to ask ourselves, what is the court hiding from the public that it doesn't want such an important, such a crucial stage in the life of the country to be streamed live?
Francis.
So,
Francis, there's a very interesting dynamic you paint here, where it seems like the government, well, according to you, might be stifling the press, but it also uses the courts as an apparatus to do so. That's the kind of picture you're painting. We also have a saying here in Nigeria: there's freedom of press, but we cannot guarantee your freedom after press. That's the way we put it here. So it's kind of like what we're going through as well. But in that case, seeing as there are very similar similarities in both cases, in Cameroon, what reforms, what apparatus are journalists working together to put in place so they are assured security, so they are assured at least that freedom to do their work? Are there any bodies, are there any reforms or policies that are being backed by journalists in Cameroon?
Yes, I would say I would not say they are real. For more than 30 years now, journalists have been pushing and advocating for the Freedom of Information Act. Journalists and journalism and journalist associations have been pushing for the decriminalization of press offenses in Cameroon. We are not yet there, but we believe that we will be there. So while waiting to be there, journalists, we have various journalism movements or associations, like the one I belong to, Cameroon Association of English-Speaking Journalists, that we count on our solidarity. We come together and we count on our solidarity. We come together to organize trainings to see how we can reinforce our capacities. But we also use our association as a pressure group with other organizations, local or international organizations, and even within the government, we use as organization as a pressure group to force or to see how we can advocate for more or better press freedom. And if we weren't constituted in associations, I don't think some of the gains we would have had today. Let me tell you, it's because we were constituted in an association that the student journalists arrested alongside over 50 persons was the only person released from detention. The others are still in detention.
Oh, thanks for that information there.
Very, very much. Thank you. Francis, I must say thank you so much for taking out the time to join us and just giving us a bit of insight following on the press and journalism landscape and the challenges that journalists face in Cameroon. We must say thank you. Thank you so much for coming on, Francis. We switch gears from Cameroon and this time to Rwanda.
Uganda, actually.
Uganda, there we go. Joining us live is Darren Ballot. He's a journalist and Pan-African media commentator. Darren, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you for coming on Now, you have covered media dynamics across the continent. What are the most worrying trends that you have observed in terms of, state tactics and, silencing dissents?
Wow, that is such an interesting question. But I think the biggest challenge that journalists are going to face, even as I speak now, because as Uganda, or in East Africa, you have Uganda, Tanzania, you have Malawi, all of them are getting into an election period of time, And so what happens here is that journalists are living on, let me call them three values. Even the word values may not even fit there, but here's what is happening. One, someone is either doing their job the way they are supposed to do it as a journalist, where you have to be truthful. Remember, you're the fourth estate, and you have to give information to people as they need it because they need access to information. And the only way to do it is through a journalist who is actually qualified to do the job. So that is one way. Number two is commercialization of journalism, which is a big challenge. And this is how people are living. Politicians are paying journalists to be able to do the job. And I don't know whether to call it a challenge or a good thing, but depending on the side of the conversation you want to follow on. But that's what I would say, that there's commercialization of journalism. But also number three, safety. For the principle of there is no story worth your life, you don't find it necessary to go and cover a story where you risk your life, you may lose it. I'll give an example. In 2021, I saw you flipping pictures of what happened here, journalists being beaten, their cameras are being shattered. So what happens is that journalists are now fearing to go and cover such stories because they don't know what they will lose, and most of them are actually freelancers. So if you're a freelancer journalist and you're carrying your equipment to go and cover a political leader who is probably on the opposition side, who is against the government, and I mean, we've seen it in Uganda here when people followed Bobi Wine, but Robert Chagulanyi started contesting against President Yoweri Museveni. We've seen it in Tanzania where journalists have been trying to follow Tundu Lissu. Those ones who are on those such trails are beaten and they lose equipment. They find themselves in jail. So journalists are making decisions to either do their job or ignore the information that they're supposed to give the people, or just sit out of the profession or become an activist and join the other side. So journalism to me is just becoming a profession where you live on the edge and you have to make decisions between what you cover and what you not cover, because you're not guaranteed. Like you said, I had to say that there's freedom of press or freedom of speech, but no one's going to guarantee you freedom after whatever you've done.
Indeed, Darren.
Even during the job.
Darren, it's a very worrying picture you paint here, especially personally being a press person for the past 20 years. I can understand where you talk about of an instance where there's a commercialization of the press. So in that vein, what are people like you, Puritans, who are journalists, doing to maybe separate the ill ones from the actual press people? Is there perhaps maybe a body, a front that's being put together? Maybe, in fact, a Pan-African Press Foundation or group or association. What do you think about that? And are there any efforts?
Yes, is that these bodies are there. We have the Uganda Journalism Association, which brings together journalists and come together and discuss on how to, have meaningful discussions with the government on their safety. However, I can give you a long history of these conversations that the journalists have had with the government, but they still never yield any fruit. They are beaten. As recent as this year, you will find a by-election that we just had recently, about 4 months ago. Journalists were not allowed to cover, were beaten, and one almost lost their eye. But we still go back to the conversations and have conversations with security organs where they only apologize and also have charity matches to say we are sorry, but again, the cycle continues. So I think the best thing is, seek legal redress, but again, going to courts and trying to put measures or discuss principles with maybe parliament and things like that to make sure that journalists are safe. It just never happens. You can go to all countries where there's a problem of probably dictatorship and less press freedoms. You will see that there are discussions to allow journalists to do their job. However, every time it comes around the election cycle, we just go back to apologizing and say we are sorry. We did this, but you see, we couldn't differentiate between you and a citizen journalist who is probably doing their job in the wrong way. You need to identify yourself. I mean, we've done all this. The government has talked about it. Even in Kenya here, governments have advised journalists to wear their press jackets, have their IDs, have all this. But again, it looks like you identifying yourself, you put yourself more in the target. Because then they'll say, oh, Darren, you're a journalist, so you're not going to be allowed to cover this. Bring your camera, walk away, and go. So it looks like identifying yourself, the measures that we are talking about, are simply not working. You just put yourself in a target instead.
Darren, I mean, as we wrap up this discussion with you so we can let you go, I must ask, right, in terms of all the hits that the entire continent have faced in the last decade, whether it's protests and wars to, you know, cracking down on dissent to juntas, military juntas, where is the future of media? Where does the future of journalism lie when it comes to shaping the narrative and the stories coming out of Africa?
That is such a fantastic question. Actually, I've asked myself a number of times where it's going to be, but here's where it's going to be. And in my prediction, the professional journalism is going to go down because of high censorship. And then the citizen journalism is the one picking up faster because anybody who has a camera is able to report a story. And those are the guys who are now forming podcasts to discuss discussions that me and you could have been having on this TV, giving information. You now find this information where unprofessional journalists are the ones discussing it in a biased way, of course, and most times people are sensational, so they prefer to have sensational things that speak to them and how they believe in them. It's not what they're discussing all over all these social media sites. No, what's happening is even professional journalists like myself are taking the direction of maybe let me go where there's less censorship, and I'm talking about social media. I'm going to give views, I'm going to report a story as I see it and what I believe in it. But here's the problem. The government also comes up with other measures, taking off the internet. I'm sure you've heard this. Uganda takes off internet every time elections is coming by, at least in the last 2 cycles. They slow down internet in Tanzania. They have slowed down internet in Kenya before when protests are happening. They've slowed down internet in Mozambique before actually switched it off. The same happens in Sudan. So every time journalists and citizen journalism try to say, maybe let's leave this thing because TV may be more censored and radio may be more censored, let's go on the internet and do it on the internet. That is a good innovation. However, you don't have that power to put on the internet and switch it off. The people who are in charge are the ones who are going to put it off. So I feel like journalism is going to be highly censored. I mean, it's not only Africa. It's America does the same. UK is doing the same on TikTok. So we are killing journalism because of policies, and we don't want people to see what they actually need to see, and we're going to just leave journalism to unprofessionals who are citizen journalists. And that's why you come in and you want to fact check everything. Likely you're going to run away with fake news.
Darren, very interesting points you made there regarding how the internet is actually used or not used, how that apparatus is switched off by certain bodies that be, let's put it that way, governments. We also kind of like suspected such here in Nigeria as well. I don't know if you agree with me.
Yeah, there was
last election, we're like, why is our internet not working?
And then there's the ban of Twitter as well.
Exactly. So it also seems like as if there is a note being taken when it comes to how information is spread and by whom. It's the younger generation who are jumping into guerrilla journalism now and are taking that advantage and putting out information. And that's why the authorities are noting and they're pulling out the plug. However, we have joining us now Catherine Maludi from Malawi, journalist Times 360. Thank you very much for joining us, Catherine. You joined at a very interesting point at this conversation here. And we're wondering what it is like in Malawi. Who are the champions of press freedom now? Are they the guerrilla journalists, like the young people? What is the climb like in Malawi?
Okay, in terms of press freedom, or what I would say is that there are some strides that have been made since the past 5 years, but still journalists in Malawi still face so many challenges. In terms of the strides that have been made, I would say in the past we had the defamation law, which now the Constitutional Court a few weeks ago has taken off. Now the defamation is no longer a criminal offense. it is something that can be dealt with at the civil court. So that I would take it as a good move towards press freedom. And there was also some sedition laws which were also taken off 2 years ago, where the name president was a protected emblem. Each time someone made a comment on the name president or said something negative about the president, we saw people being arrested. But now that law has been taken off, it has been repealed. So the president, like the name president, is no longer a protected emblem. But still, we are facing so many challenges. I would give an example where some months ago, a journalist had to run away from the country because he reported something about the Malawi Defense Force, which at the moment still people are afraid to report anything about the Malawi Defense Force. So after he did that report, he was being targeted, and we saw that journalist running away from Malawi for some months until he just returned recently. And I would also give another example where you understand in Malawi, this is an election period. We are just some 30 days away to elections. So there was a presentation of nomination papers for those who have expressed interest to contest in the coming election. So there was the president of the ruling party also presenting his nomination papers there. So what happened? Journalists were given a platform to ask questions at that event, to ask questions to the current president, who was also presenting his nomination papers showing interest to contest. And most questions that were asked to the president, if they came somehow in a way that the party supporters, the MCP supporters, did not like, we saw journalists there saying things that were targeting journalists, some journalists there, and we saw some journalists even being escorted by police officers and some hired security men because they are being targeted by party supporters. I remember I also asked a question to the president that why should Malawians give him another 5 years after people have gone into so many challenges in the past 5 years he has been president.
Catherine,
I was booed there in the yes?
Yes, I hate to cut you, but we're pressed for time, and I just want to really squeeze this in as you are, giving your submission. You talked about, the challenges that journalists in Malawi faced, and they still face. And you also talked about, the embargoes, or should I say, the way that there are words that have now been criminalized and decriminalized. And it's also very similar to what we have here in Nigeria in terms of the Cyberbullying Act and how that has been skewed, to somewhat be like a tool of dissent when you're going online to talk, And so I have to talk about the way media is shifting with the times from traditional media, which is radio and television, to now digital media. And with all of that comes the emergence of AI, right? I wonder how that is used, to disseminate information and also misinform Malawians, especially during a time as critical as the elections.
Okay, talking about that, we've also seen the citizen journalism increasing on the increase here in Malawi. Because most issues, you would see that there would be a news story, maybe that a mainstream media house cannot carry, just because maybe they're afraid of lawsuits and whatsoever. Because in Malawi, media houses are not doing so well. So there can be a story, a powerful story, wanting to expose something, but then the media houses would vet that story, look at it, and in the end decide not to publish it just because they're afraid of lawsuits. So we've now seen the citizen journalism taking over because even those whistleblowers, they have seen that the major media houses are afraid of reporting on some issues. So they would take those tips and give to the citizen journalists. So we've seen so many misinformation, fake news on the social media, just because those are not censored. If there's a certain story, someone who is just a social media influencer would just rush to post it. They will not even vet that story. which is unlike what we do in the mainstream media, where we need to verify the story to balance it before we publish. So citizen journalism in Malawi is on the increase just because it's not censored.
Okay, thank you very much, Catherine. Let me come back to Darren. Darren, similar question here regarding the use of AI and journalism, not just AI, but all the tools that are readily available online. How does this form journalistic practices in your country?
In fact, there is a committee that has been put in place by the Uganda Communications Commission to come up with some policies on how to use AI to avoid instances where fake news may be spread. However, that said, there is also a tendency of politicians to make statements that go out and, in fact, when they are factual, but they end up denying them, saying that is AI. So they are now accusing AI to have done things here, and many times it has happened. But yes, I think we are in a very dangerous era, and we've learned as journalists and also as people, we try to educate people how to verify images that they come across, because I mean, you could have seen it in Kenya, where a young man lost his life called Boniface. I think he did something, posted something on social media, and was picked up. You see images of Ruto being formed in a casket, and all those people have been arrested and aligned in court. So as journalists, we try our level best to remain with our basic principles of then that we had before all this internet, whereby you must have contacts to people who you call to verify information, rather than just run away with it. We saw this in COVID, where rumors were spreading that, oh, the president has probably succumbed to COVID, or he's now very ill, yet he wasn't, just because a helicopter was landing somewhere and picking up something to take and say, that is the presidential helicopter. He could be very sick and would die. So they are coming up with a lot of principles and some regulations as we get into the election cycle to make sure that we are able to verify with who. So the government is putting up, I'll call it like contacts, a contact list for who to call, especially in elections, who to call in electoral commission. And then also political parties are putting up contacts of who do you call in the political parties to verify certain information. Otherwise, the likelihood of misinformation is going to go so up, especially when the days of voting comes. People will come up with all kinds of results that are going to come out, forging papers to say this is the winner in this constituency, yet it's not going to be. So I think the most important thing is going back to the principles of journalism in terms of verification, so that you don't find yourself running away with what my sister just said, Catherine, here, that influencers are putting up information, activists are putting up information, but you also need to understand most of them are biased. So you need to understand the spirit in which they publish this kind of information, or else you're going to find yourself in a very dangerous place. So as we all come to the internet and see information online, the most important thing is when I pick it up, I have to call you, who I know. For example, News Central Africa usually gets to me and asks me questions whether something is right or wrong in Uganda. Then I'll tell them, yes, this is it or not, because I work in one of the biggest media houses in East Africa, so why not? I have access to this kind of information. So the most important thing is going back to the principles of journalism, where we verify information with the right sources. Otherwise, in the spirit of AI, anybody can generate a video of me speaking right now saying that someone has won an election, and then you publish it, and then problems come.
Right. Let me come to you, Catherine, right? As we're talking about AI and digital media, earlier you were talking about, how the younger or citizens are also stepping in to, provide news and do their own bit in sort of shaping the narrative and shaping the future of Malawi. But where does that lie in the traditional media and journalism space itself, in onboarding more younger generation, whether it's Gen Z, to take up the mantle and passing the baton on from Malawi? Where does that lie, and how are you shaping the future voices for journalism in Malawi?
Here in Malawi, I would say many young people are showing interest in studying journalism. We've seen an increase in terms of young journalists. Even at the moment, it's very rare to see older people in the newsrooms. Most of the journalists we have currently are young people. And most of them, I should say, have embraced the use of AI in journalism. And I would say it's not that much. It's not that much. Not most journalists, not most young journalists are using AI. But we've also seen these citizen journalists who are young and on social media abusing AI. Recently, we saw a picture that was in circulation that the former president, Peter Mutharika, is very sick and on wheelchair. And there was a picture that was circulating on the social media that he is on the wheelchair at the moment and very sick. That was an AI-generated picture. So if you look at this picture, it was generated by someone, a citizen journalist who just sat somewhere, developed the picture, and then posted it on the social media, and many people believed it. So in terms of the citizen journalists, many people are abusing the AI, circulating fake stories, making up videos that the president is speaking. And during this election period, we've seen a lot of abuse, a lot of AI abuse, unlike in the mainstream media, where many young people are using AI professionally. Maybe most of the time, just having it edit, they are already done stories and whatsoever. So they are using it wisely, unlike in the other circle, where citizens just come up, make some videos, make up some stories, and post them on the social media. So the abuse mainly is happening on the part of the citizen journalists, not on the mainstream journalists.
Thank you very much, Catherine. Catherine Maludi, want to say thank you very much for joining us. Also, Darren joined from Uganda there. Darren, thank you very much for joining us to have this very interesting conversation. Not just indeed. You two, we had a host of other guests. I want to say special thank you to Honorable Binta Maman, Commissioner, Ministry of Information Strategy, Niger State. Also, Mr. Akin Agbejule, who joined us earlier, broadcaster and member of National Governing Council, Nigeria Institute of Public Relations.
We also had Harriet Atiang, who's a station manager at Dada Radio Kenya, who joined us live in Kenya to give us insight on journalism in Kenya. Also, Francis Adjumani, who is a president at Cameroon Association of English-Speaking Journalists, Yaoundé in Cameroon. And finally, many thanks to Professor Itsi Sikanku, who unfortunately we couldn't bring him on, but he was going to join us live from Ghana. He's a professor at the University of Media, Arts and Communication, UNIMAC. Pretty much all. Gentlemen, I must say thank you. Ladies, thank you as well.
Thank you very much.
Joining us.
60 minutes, actually. 60 minutes of a very interesting, robust conversation on press freedom in Africa, the ethics, the challenges. And we hope that we continue to see a fight for our freedom as press people. And this is why we had to bring you this 1 hour. And hopefully that the authorities will let us do our job, because we represent a bigger population of people who
we are the fourth estate of democracy.
Exactly. Thank you very much, Judith. Yeah. Do stay tuned. We're on to the final hour now for Breakfast Extra, and we've got quite an interesting one. First off, Wellness Extra, and then we'll be bringing you someone you'd like to see. Emphasis on the word see. Stay tuned.
You're welcome back. Now, each year, World Breastfeeding Week brings global attention to a vital yet often underappreciated issue: how we support the women and who nourish future generations. In Nigeria, where maternal and child mortality rates remain concerning, the role of breastfeeding in improving infant health and strengthening the mother-child bond cannot be overstated. Yet, while the science is clear, the support systems from family units to government policies are far from adequate. From short maternity leave policies to workplace environments that do not accommodate or even serve nursing mothers, and even the cultural pressures that shame or silence open conversations around breastfeeding, Nigerian women face multiple barriers. The physical and emotional toll on mothers is real. Breastfeeding is natural, yes, but in today's world, it is anything but easy.
Absolutely. So we mark World Breastfeeding Week. We ask, how can Nigeria prioritize the health of nursing mothers? Not just with lip service, but through actionable support systems, policies, and community awareness. So joining us in Wellness Central today are two individuals deeply involved in maternal and child health. We have with us Rasheedat Sani Afolabi, a nurse and public health educator, and also Taiwo Arubuolawe Fadairo, the State Nutrition Officer for Lagos at the Ministry of Health. Ladies, you're welcome. How did I do with the name? Thank you.
Excellent. Now, at this point, you're Yoruba-speaking Lagosian.
Yeah. Thank you, ladies. You're welcome. Let's get started. Let's ask what the challenges that you have noted when it comes to breastfeeding mothers, Lagos, Nigeria, Africa generally. Let's start with you, Mrs. Fadairo.
Well, there are a lot of myths surrounding breastfeeding. Just as we have known, breast milk is the best nutritious food a child needs from 0 to 6 months exclusively. No agbo, no concussion, nothing. But because of the area where we are in this side of the world, Africa, especially Nigeria where we are, we discovered there are a lot of myths to it. So a lot of people feel, how can you breastfeed, give a child only breast milk? It won't be enough. It won't be able to sustain the child. The child cannot get enough, and the nourishment is not that much in breast milk. And they even feel adding water to breast milk is very, very necessary. Meanwhile, they are wrong. They are wrong. Yeah.
And that's very interesting. Ma'am, let me come to you, Ms. Rasheedat, and also talk about, your own point of view as a nursing mother and the challenges that mothers face, right, when it comes to nursing and breastfeeding. We mentioned several during the intro. One of them is a short maternity leave. Secondly, is the support from workplaces and also public spaces. Now, we know that Lagos State government is doing their best, but at the federal level, what more needs to be done to sort of help with the challenges that nursing mothers face in nourishing our coming generations?
Okay, so I think at the federal level, they need to borrow a leaf from what Lagos State is doing, and by ensuring that there are policies in place to further support. Even I know that at the federal, a lot is going on. Presently, there's a project being implemented in a few states, which is the Maternal, Infant, and Young Child Nutrition Project. And it also tries to incorporate those policies and programs that will make breastfeeding easy for the mother and also the child, so that the child can have adequate nutrition. So then for the states, yes, we are doing a lot. Hopefully that we can get better in terms of, presently we have the first 2 children. The woman is pregnant. After the first 2 babies, she has 6 whole months to herself. But good enough, there are also measures that have been put in place in terms of provision of crèches. So we have most of the MDAs, there's the ministries, departments, and agencies, they've got crèches. So even when the woman comes back, she can still have a baby close by, and she can continue the complementary feeding along with the breastfeeding.
That's very interesting.
Very interesting, Rashida. Can I also add to this? Now, while we're talking about state and federal policies that could, let's also note that we're talking to a population of people who sometimes are under certain, well, if we look at the classes of people who these policies are trying to reach, they are, let's say, D class, C class, mostly, who have these very strong cultural, traditional myths that they hold to. One of these is that, like you've noted, breast milk is not all they need. There's this thing that they do where they bring a camel, hold the nose, and they report it.
Force-feeding.
I've seen many midwives try to kill babies.
No, did you say midwives?
Is it midwives?
No, they are not midwives.
It's grandmothers.
Grandmothers
and nannies,
Thank you.
Because midwifery itself is a profession.
Okay, good. So my apologies there. Wrong term. But how do you dispel these myths that you have come across in your efforts to bring more education to breastfeeding and breastfeeding mothers?
Okay, that was a very good one. And I appreciate the fact that this conversation is coming up. Really, we know that we are these kind of people that we are so, our culture is not, generally, yes, but generally, culture is not something that can be eroded overnight. But with sensitization like this and discussions around breastfeeding and support, we can get there. So during the week, of course, the world commemorated the World Breastfeeding Week, and I presume this is an extension of what we are doing right now. So we go to the communities, we break it down in the language you understand, and we present it in a very practical manner for them to understand. Remember, most of these people that do this for feeding and the like, it is because they want that child to feed. They can't stand it to see that the child goes hungry. However, in the process of doing that, the child can aspirate. And at the end of the day, the child can come down with upper respiratory tract infections and even some other complications that can be life-threatening. So we take it from day one. Immediately the woman is born, even while the baby is born, even from pregnancy. That's why we also encourage them to come along with the pregnant women during the antenatal care. So most times, you know who will probably be who's going to be your support system. Like in this part of the world where we are, we find out that when the woman delivers, she probably have our mother-in-law, our mom come around. So that's I would say like a treatment partner kind of. So the person is supposed to be in the process, not just when she now puts to bed and she now comes out. So when the time person comes to the antenatal clinic, they'll be listening to the conversation. They can ask questions. They can raise
So this is like this is pre-Omugo.
Yes.
Pre-Omugo class. Let's put it like, Judith, you know what Omugo is.
So, you know, the issue of expressing the colostrum, that's the first milk that comes out immediately the child is born. The mother wants to breastfeed, and you hear the mother or the mother-in-law, or whoever is staying with, express it. That one is dirty, you know, let the fresh one now come out. Unknown to many that first one is even the gold that you are just throwing away.
Wow.
So yeah, that's the colostrum, the first immunization that child will take. And it also has something we call immunoglobulin, and it's very, very good for the child. So we are using this opportunity to also encourage them not to express it's away. We should make sure that that baby takes that colostrum and continues within the first hour of life.
Right.
Within the first hour of life.
As we're talking about antenatal education when it comes to mothers and, you know, what's coming out of their bodies and what the babies need necessarily, let's also talk about the stigma as well for mothers as well, and the stigma and re-educating public. So let me ask you, ma'am, what can we do just besides having this conversation here and intervention weeks? Does it stop only at breastfeeding week? What's being done to continually push the boundaries?
Thank you. You know, before the enactment of the 6-month maternity leave, which the state did in July 2014, that's the first in the country, a lot of surveys, activities, sensitization has really been ongoing in the state to ensure that we do that. And looking at our statistics now, breastfeeding, EBF in the state, the state has surpassed the global target, which is 50%. So the state is at 57.4%, although there are still a lot of gaps. So what the state is doing presently is to ensure we improve, intensify community sensitization, capacity building of health workers across board, capacity building of health workers at the state level, local government level, ward level, community level, across all the districts in the state. So the state made it a point of duty to ensure that we first of all build the capacity of health workers, especially health workers at the antenatal clinic, health workers at the labor ward, then health workers generally. Then both at state level, LGA level, even the PACs, they made it a point of duty to sensitize, to build the capacity of the mothers themselves, and those are the facility. Those that will come to the facility, their capacity are built, they are sensitized, for them to know the importance of breastfeeding. And the importance of breastfeeding, if you see, it's very enormous, much. It helps to curtail infection, just as you have said, the first yellowish milk, which is colostrum,
But Ms. Fadayo,
is the first immunization a child needs.
You talk about sensitization, but I think one group of people are left out. What can we do as men? And I ask that very deliberately because when you look at the private sector, it's mostly run, well, mostly by men. And we might not have the right knowledge of what it takes to actually breastfeed. And if you put it in an office setting, a corporate setting, are women given the adequate amount of time, especially after childbirth, away from work, or even the opportunity to bring children, babies, infants in because they need to breastfeed them? What is Lagos State doing when it comes to these little policies that help women navigate this issue?
So bringing in the roles of men, right?
Exactly, roles of men also in corporate organizations.
Just as she has said too earlier, she made mention of the breastfeeding policies, not only for the women. We also have 14 days paternity leave for the men.
Okay.
That's the first 2 delivery, so that the woman can get herself together and the man too can play his role. You know, the role of a man in that area is very, very essential. That's why they are given the 2 weeks paternity leave. So apart from provision of food and other things that the woman will need, The man is there to encourage. You know, let's be sincere. Exclusive breastfeeding for 6 months, coupled with 2 appropriate complementary feeding from 6 months up to 2 years. And looking at the 1,000-day window of opportunity, we call it from conception up to 2 years of age. That means that 1,000 days window of opportunity is to ensure that we support the breastfeeding mother, support the child to take enough nourishment for cognitive development, intelligence, IQ, and all that, and for the child to be healthy.
All this from breast milk?
Yes, all this from breast milk. So that is why, and that's why in this nation, if you see people, I mean, we are looking at the futures of tomorrow. That's why we are taking extra care for these children. Because when they grow with love, you know, breastfeeding brings up bonding between the mother and the child and everyone around, and it gives more intelligence IQ. So if we have such children as leaders of tomorrow, what do you think will happen to our society? What do you think will happen to the country as a whole?
Right. As we wrap up this discussion, because we're pressed for time, I have to talk about the mothers who cannot breastfeed as well, and the mental toll it takes. So you're talking about the bonding that you know, is facilitated by breastfeeding, but there are mothers who have used alternative ways to have their baby, whether through surrogacy or otherwise adoption, and they cannot breastfeed, you know. How then, you know, what support can be given to them, you know?
So in terms of a woman or women that cannot breastfeed for several reasons, the community still needs to support them. We do not need to talk down on them. And I think I had a case during the week where the woman said the child, after the lecture I gave them, that the child was not breastfeeding and the child was just 14 weeks old, which was quite, you know, and we just had to keep encouraging her to ensure that she does not stop. And she's now using breast milk substitute. So I told her she can express the breast milk and give with cup and spoon. However, she still needs to keep putting the baby so that the baby can latch on the breast, and with time she will re-stimulate the response and they will be let down.
Are
so
these
by and
substitutes
large,
expensive?
Of course they are more expensive.
So, like Mr. Father now, does Lagos State assist with these kinds of substitutes for women who are finding
in addition to what she just said and what you are asking, if we look at it, looking at the policy and what is going on, you will notice that a lot of people, a very high percentage, have capacity to breastfeed. Only a very few percentage has this issue. And even if you are HIV positive, you can breastfeed. So far, you are taking your antiretroviral drugs adequately. Really? You can breastfeed exclusively. And even though, in fact, the state does not tolerate the use of breast milk substitute because there's a code of marketing of breast milk substitute, and we work hand in hand with NAFDAC. You must not display it, you must not market it, it must not be promoted at health facilities.
Otherwise it'd be abused.
In fact, there is a task force against that, and it's comprised of people from the state, from the PAC level, Primary Health Care Board, across the district, community level, NAFDAC, and all that. So there's a policy against that. You don't market it, you don't promote it, and everybody are meant to breastfeed, except only a very few number. Even people with inverted nipples are always taken care of at the facility. Yeah, because we have a lot of maternal and child centers where
Ladies,
children are
I wish there was enough time to talk about, pretty much just the mental toll is really what I'm concerned at, but I wish there was enough time. Also, thank you to both of you for taking out the time to join us. And to everyone watching, please remember that breastfeeding is important to nourish our next generation to come. But if you have the mental, if you don't have the capacity to do that, always lean to your community for support. Pretty much all we can take in this hour. Now remember that after the break, we switch gears and we had, or rather, I beg your pardon, there's no break.
There's
right
no
about
break,
now,
let me let them know already. So let's move on from our Wellness Central topic into something that we are excited about. Now, for more than 3 decades, Segun Arinze has remained one of the most recognizable faces and voices in Nigerian entertainment. A man of many talents, he began his journey as a musician, earning the nickname Black Arrow from an unforgettable commercial that, was a movie that seared his image into popular culture. But it was Nollywood that gave him a long-lasting stage. From menacing villains to wise elders, Segun Arinze has played them all. Off camera, he has also made his mark, serving as president of the Actors Guild of Nigeria, mentoring younger actors and lending his voice to advocacy in the creative industry. Now, he's been in the room where the deals are made, and he's watched the industry rise, stumble, and also evolve. He's seen the game change, and he's changed it himself.
So today, it's imperative we talk not just about the legend, but the man, the legacy, the pivot points, the price of relevance, and the pressure of permanence. Because behind this spotlight is a story that deserves its own lens. Segun Arinze joins us live now. Segun, welcome to Breakfast Extra, Mr. Arinze.
Black Arrow in the house. Welcome, sir. I hope you can hear us.
Thank you.
Now we're aware there's a bit of a delay.
Claire, thank you so much. Good morning. I didn't expect that, but thank you.
It's all you. It's all you.
Mazino, how are you? And my sweetheart there, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you very much. Let's take it back, shall we? Before the fame, before Black Arrow, before the glare of Nollywood, what was young Arinze, young Segun Arinze dreaming about? Was this ever what you sought out to be, or was this it just happened to you and you just took the journey from there?
Funnily, I got introduced into theater way back in Ilorin. I was still in secondary school at Victory College of Commerce, ADD, on the outskirts of Ilorin, and just not too far from Oro and Ajashekbo. And that was when this friend, he's late now, Ayo Orowale, introduced me to theater. And then we used to go to the Kwara State Council for Arts and Culture and do things with them. And of course, NTA Ilorin now provided the platform for me at that young age to sing, because I used to mime on youth scene and then do plays with the cultural center with Randy Ojo Lakbe and the rest of them. And there was a certain guy called Larry as well. So it was for me at that point that I made up my mind that that was what I was going to do, that was going to be my forte. So it became an intentional thing. Even though against all odds, my father didn't want me to. He wanted me to be a lawyer. I don't know why he wanted me to be a lawyer, but I insisted. And we're going back and forth on it. And he was saying, okay, I'm not going to pay the school fees, but I kept my foot down. I put my foot down and insisted at that time. And as young as I was that time, maybe a bit rebellious, but eventually he allowed me, and I went to do dramatic arts at the University of Ife then. The late Bio Dunaye helped me get in the admission, and I got trained at the Department of Dramatic Arts under Chuck Mike. And then I'd gone through quite a number of renowned producers and directors, both on stage and on television. Olubide also gave me a platform on NTA Ilorin to also showcase my talent, Mr. Abdul Durodola himself as well at NTA Ilorin in those days. So that's how the journey started. And I never looked back since then. And I tell you, I've never ever looked back and had regrets. If I was to do it again, I'll do it all over again.
Fantastic.
Wonderful stuff.
It's always very interesting to talk with people who are from the original Nollywood. Now we see a situation where Nollywood is evolving into something differently now. And that's not a bad thing in itself, but plenty of people have plenty of questions, and I'm wondering what your take is on this. Let me expatiate here. Now, we see plenty of instances where people go from being online sensations into being movie stars. We also see situations where producers, directors take advantage of the mass following that these people have, not because of their Puritan ability to actually act, but because they've got a huge following. I'm wondering what you think this, or how you think this influences movies or movie making in Nigeria. Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Is it for the numbers now so people can see, or is it for the art?
Funnily enough, just before we got on air, I was discussing with your crew here. We discussed the exact same thing about influencers coming into the industry. It's fine. It's okay, but so long as they follow the rules of the game. You know, the thing about being an entertainer is talent. Talent is the first and foremost thing that you need to have. And once you recognize that you have the talent, then every other thing falls into place. But I would also say in the same vein, on the same breath, that I have nothing against influencers coming into the industry or using their social media platforms to, following the numbers, or producers going after them because of the numbers. Yeah, but I mean, for crying out loud, train yourself, improve yourself, get yourself acquainted with the industry that you're coming into, and not just coming because of the numbers or because you think you have the influence. Look at what Macaroni has done, for instance. He went to the Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts, rather, and I'm so proud of him for doing that. At this age, I mean, he's acquired a lot of followership on social media, and he decided, hey, I need to improve myself. And he went to RADA. And that's a good thing. So if we have more people go there and, you know, get themselves acquainted with what happens in the industry, get trained. Even for me, as an actor, as I am now with over 43 years in the business, I still learn every day. Every day of my life is a learning process. So I don't see anything wrong with influencers coming in. Where I'll get a bit weary is when you come in for the purpose of using it just to elevate yourself for no reason. You're not impacting, you're not imparting, you're not teaching anything, and you're just there because you have the numbers and you just want to make money, and after a while you fizzle out. That's where I'll pick bones with you. But there's nothing absolutely wrong with it. It's okay. Like I said earlier, because of the nature of the arts, the entertainment industry, it's an all-cover affair for everybody. It's always been an all-cover affair. You can't say like in the military where you have to go and train as a soldier or as a naval officer or as a doctor or as an engineer. Whether it's strictly like that, you must be trained before you come into the business. Unfortunately, any way you look at it from both sides of the divide, it's like that. But just improve yourself. That's for me.
Talk about the purity of this art. One of the very vital aspect of it, which you also alluded to in your earlier submission, was how you started out on theater, on stage, and how, you know, that sort of helped in your trajectory into the arts when it comes to acting as well. But when we look at stage drama and we look at the stage itself, I won't say it's phasing out, but it doesn't have the popularity as it used to have. You know, not so much money is made out of there. So let's talk about the revival or the renaissance of, you know, the theater. Do you see that being revived, and what would it take to revive stage drama and, you know, stage performance in you know, contemporary times?
That's a very good, very good question, Mazido. There has to be a renaissance, like you said. There has to be a renaissance of the theater. And I was passing by, so I can't remember, I think it was the Lucky Tollgate. I saw this big billboard they were talking about stage plays. And Bolanle Austin Peter is also doing a yeoman's job trying to revive the theater, live theater. It's good. Yes, you may not make money from it, but hey, Broadway is still there for those who want to watch. So I'd like to see a situation where we get all of these big names and come on stage one day. Like 20 big names come on stage and let's do the throwdown. So we'll know who be who, man go know who be man. Because, you know, for film and television is cut, take, and they, you know, they edit it and you look good. Stage, you and the audience alone. You know, when push comes to shove, that's what stage is all about. I love the stage. I was born on the stage. I was built for the stage. I was meant for the stage. And incidentally, as I celebrate my 60th birthday next month, I'll be on stage in Ghana, in faraway Ghana, performing. And that, for me, it's a joyful thing. So let there be a renaissance of the live theater. We can do it. We can get it back. And, you know, like I said, Broadway is still there. Even in the UK, live theater also thrives.
You break my heart when you refer to Mazino as Judith.
Yeah, that question was from Judith. It was an interesting story, Judith. But in any case, what happened to your music? I remember the one with S.A. Agese. It's fantastic to see someone who's on stage be a music star as well. I mean, you've won all the mics, whether it's the lapel mic, the boom mic, the one you use for singing, every single one of them. But what exactly happened to the one for music? We didn't see much of that. Are we going to see any form of you expressing in form of music anytime soon?
Well, I did.
Well, I'm wondering. Go ahead.
Will you be hearing from me anytime soon? Yes, I still perform on the stage with live bands once in a while when I do have the opportunity. But I did a follow-up after that first album, Dreams. I did something called In the Moods, which was on OJ's label. My kids sing, so maybe they will take over from there, but once in a while. But I still, you know, once I get this urge to say, let me do something for myself. So maybe, Alibaba is still fighting with me over that. He's so upset with me about that. So maybe just maybe, because I discussed it with Timi Dakolo some time back, and I said, I'd like to do an album called Segun Arinze and Friends, my favorite song. So let's hope maybe in the near future, you say. Not too far anyway. So let me just keep that there.
Right. Mr. Arinze, as we're talking about, music and your contributions in the arts, one of them was, your time as, president of the Actors Guild. And so I want to talk about the creative industry, but most importantly, Nollywood. It has metamorphosed over the years, or it has, continually changed from what we knew it to be in the 80s and the 90s to now what it is, with the emergence of streaming services and the boom of theater, right, and premieres. But what about the challenges as well? Does that, with all of the investment that we're seeing from streaming platforms, or even the dial back from those investments to theaters, booming across Nigeria, the network of theaters, there are still challenges that, Nollywood still faces.
Do you mean cinemas?
No, I mean, Nollywood itself, the challenges that Nollywood is facing. So do you see, those challenges going to resolve itself, or do you see also changing with the times? And is Nollywood equipped for that, to tackle it?
All right, to answer that question, every industry has a challenge. And life is cyclical. That's the way the industry is all over, wherever it is, whatever business you do. It's always cyclical. There's nothing you've done that hasn't been done before. It's just for you to adapt to it and rise up to the occasion of facing the challenges. Challenges will ever be there. They're constantly there. But it has to do with your perseverance and your level of consistency in facing and tackling those challenges head on. When we started, nobody gave us the chance. It was odds, it was like 1 to 10. The odds were against us because they looked upon us as never do good, people who are irresponsible and all that. But today, you go out, everybody wants to come into Nollywood in any way possible. Skits, music, dance. Now we have what you call the social media influencers who also do acting. In terms of the professional equipment that we use in filming, we've also upgraded. The stories are getting better. Directors are also improving on their works. So for you to take the directorial chair these days, you must have your onions. You must know what you have to do. So it's toe to toe. I mean, look at, for example, the level at which we have gotten to on streaming platforms. This new movie now, To Kill a Monkey by Kemi Adetiba. Top notch, and you can see the acting level. You can also see William Benson, Buchi Franklin, Bimbo, Ireti Doyle, Stella DeMastos. Everybody brought that A game. In terms of production values, it was high, top notch. Kudos to Kemi Adetiba. And you see other producers are also doing the same thing. Once the challenge comes, I think it's for us to just sit down, recalibrate, and tell ourselves the truth and how do we go. And I also think that the industry needs to come together once in a while and have this JoJo, have these workshops and all that. Time was when it was all about beef. I don't think we need that. We need to move forward. And I also abhor the talks about new Nollywood and old Nollywood. I was just telling the crew members here before we went on air that there's nothing like new or old Nollywood. See, barracks is there. Soldier come, soldier go. Police come, police go.
Interesting.
The barrack remains. And same thing with the medical field, same thing with the engineering. There will always be new people who come with new ideas to do things. And for the older ones, they also learn. I tell the younger ones, hey, give me your youth and I'll give you my experience. Let's share. So it's a learning process for everybody. I don't like that. When there's that dichotomy of old and new Nollywood, it makes us look as if we're shitty. If we did that at our level with the likes of Adelove, Baba Salah, Ogunde, then we paid them reverence. We reverenced them. And we liked what they did because they created the platform. They gave us the platform for us to thrive. So it's not a nice thing for the new ones to come in and just shove us through into waste bin and say, oh, it's your time is up. It's our time. Nothing like that happens. And for me, the industry, Mazino.
Yes, Mr. Arinze, those eyes. Mr. Arinze, but we are out of time, but I wanted to push in one last question that is very important. Piggybacking off something you said regarding your, well, give me your youth and I'll give you my experience. You and a host of others have given us your youth. You also are, or at one time was, the president of the Actors Guild of Nigeria. Now, I'm wondering, we've seen so much of you give us your youth, and we're wondering what happens in the heydays.
I'm still president of Association of Voiceover Artists now.
Yes, you are. That I know very much, of which, yes, I'm very well involved. Now, when it comes to the heydays of
after this program, I will call you Mazino. Me and you, we have axe to grind.
I know, sir. But talking about the superstars who gave us their youth, when it comes to their heyday, we see a recurring pattern where there's problem when it comes to their health. And I'm wondering, what responsibility does the Actors Guild have for these members? Or what responsibilities do we have as fans? Or what responsibilities do they have or did they have on themselves from before? What's your take, sir?
First, let me take it from the individual point of view. It's lifestyle. And you're adults. We can't come and tell you what to do or what not to do. It's a lifestyle, it's a personal thing. Then as an association, our job is to help you protect your rights, fight for you, make sure that you have good welfare, and then also provide like an HMO for your health. And now you have to buy into it, key into it. Now ask yourself again, a lot of people who are in associations do not pay their dues. And once you have those dues, you can help pay for HMO and do all that you have to do for the associations and guilds. But unfortunately, once they get a job, they take the money and go and do their lifestyle. You can't stop them. So when you begin to now heap this responsibility on the association, I think that will be so unfair. So unfair. Associations and guilds and what have you will do their very best in trying to provide an enabling environment for you to thrive. To thrive, just the way government also will help us to provide an enabling environment for the industry to thrive. Right? We have the Ministry of Creative Economy right now and Culture and Tourism. They are working to make sure that there's an environment to also thrive. That's the same way associations and guilds also do. But when it comes to personal lifestyles, you do not have a hold on individuals and their personal lifestyles. So that's a big, big question. How do we go about that? The answers? I don't know.
Oh, wow.
Right. As we wrap up this discussion, let's very quickly, besides you being a voice actor, singer, and as well as stage and the silver screen, you were also in Yoruba movies as well. And so I'm very interested to see or ask, which other ventures, would you be in Hausa movies, Igbo movies, and what do you see the future of indigenous film or indigenous language films sort of in this conversation we're talking about Nollywood?
Well, they're doing very well. They're doing so very well. They're doing very well. They're trying their best. They're also rising up to the occasion. So let's leave it at that. Once in a while, I go in there and do what I have to do, contribute my own quota. But what I want to do right now is I want to have a talk show. I think it's time for me to go back to my talk show.
Nice. I love that.
That's beautiful.
Love that. I must say thank you so much. We know you as the Black Arrow, the villain in some of the best movies in Nollywood, as well as a voice actor, as well as singer, and also going behind the scenes and doing your best when it comes to policies as it pertains to our arts. I must say thank you, sir, for taking out the time to join us this morning. This has been a dream come true, as well as a pleasure and an honor for everyone here. Thank you so much,
Thank you very much, Mr. Segun Arinze, and I'm scared now for that phone call we're going to have after this. But thank you for joining us on air, sir.
Welcome. I thank you so much. Thank you for giving me the opportunity this morning.
You're welcome.
Good morning, everybody. God bless you all.
God
Bye-bye.
bless you.
Oh, what a way to round up the show this
yes,
morning.
indeed.
Absolutely fantastic. Loved it. We seem to be on a roll.
Yeah, with this guys, don't we? Yeah, with the big names.
That's grand.
I mean,
That's good.
we'll bring the stars. Yeah,
Well, we're not ending here today. This is just the first installment. Come tomorrow. There's another one for a Sunday edition here. You want to join us? Join us for the start. Make sure every single time at 8 a.m. because Judith's going to be doing the monologue tomorrow.
Oh, please.
I'm wondering what it's going to be
don't
about.
put me on the pedestal, I beg.
I always look forward to them.
Oh, please don't. But please join us at 8 o'clock. We'll be here live for you. In the meantime, coming up in about 10 minutes, we're going to have the sports guys and the game's going to roll up for you. But until then, it's goodbye and bye for us. See you tomorrow.